What's up, YouTube? As you can tell, I look like I just woke up because I did just wake up. It's like 4:30 in the morning, something like that. I got a couple lights on. Thankfully, I've got this big bookshelf that's like blocking out window behind me. I've got lights on everywhere. Trying to wake up while I do this recording. I got to go pick up my parents in like 45 minutes to take them out to the airport. They're going to see one of my sisters in Florida. So I am recording this video so that I can get it uploaded while I'm going to pick them up. And yeah, hopefully we'll have something live today. But that's about all I can say. Let's go ahead and hop into it. A little Grixis Shadow League. I was trying out Narset Parter Veils a little bit for the Bean. I say Bean Menace because I feel like the Bean Menace has been highly over exaggerated. Like, I know for me personally, losing Beanstalk, I get. That one's kind of a pain. I hate losing to the One Ring. I think that card's like egregious and makes me not want to play anything non-blue. But Beanstalk specifically, up the Beanstalk, I think hasn't had the long-lasting impact that people thought it would, and obviously like Scam has a large part to do with that. I just saw a meta breakdown today. I want to say on Reddit. Whenever we stream, I'll find the live or find the article about it. But somebody had Scam is like one of the highest meta shares and most popular, like most polarized meta share since Hogak. And I thought that was pretty telling. So obviously I'll find the source for where I read that and have it ready to go whenever the next stream is. But it means that I would much rather be prepared for Scam than for the One Ring right now, which is why I'm not running like as many counter spells as I usually do. Usually on 4 Drown in the lock, maybe 2 or 3 Spell Pierce in the main, but I'm kind of down on those, up on Bolts, Heats, Terminate in the main. Really been liking Fable and Kroxa because I think both of those cards do an excellent job against Scam. Bowmasters is great. But just because I think Scam's such a popular deck doesn't mean I can't try to be a little more interactive against the One Ring and up the Beanstalk. So that's why we do have the 2 copies of Narset in the board, as well as swapping out the second Flusterstorm for a Spell Pierce, just to try to get a little more engaging in those matchups. Maybe find a way to deal with them on an unfair axis. I'll have a Planeswalker out. So don't mind the fantastic hair this morning. Gonna record this, then hop in the shower. But let's go ahead and jump into some of the matches so you can see what they're looking like. Game 1, round 1, on the draw. Put it on a breeding pool. Like, whenever I see a breeding pool nowadays, I should think Rhinos living in Omnath. Honestly, I think Omnath 9 times out of 10 now. Like, Living End is very reasonable. Rhinos is reasonable. Breeding Pool into Flooded Strand makes me think it's not Rhinos or Living End. So I'm assuming it is Beanstalk, which, as we see, it is. But at least we can Bowmaster before it comes down, get a couple triggers. Unless, of course, they've got like a Solitude or something, you know. You know how it is. They get rid of the Bowmaster. It does take a draw off of their Beanstalk, which is kind of okay-ish. Not really. Decided to just hold up, Drown in the Lock here to try to fight over like a second Beanstalk. A Mystical Dispute my Expressive Iteration. Not gonna lie, I didn't see that one coming. I don't think I've seen any Beanstalk decks running Mystical Dispute in the main deck. Again, I could have sat on or played Shadow this turn, but I wanted to sit on the Drown in the Lock, which we get kind of rewarded on that for taking out Omnath. And then Kroxa, great top deck here to hopefully get them close to empty-handed. We can just like Kroxa, Fable, start working on our 2-for-1s. We're just kind of like, well, Time Warp as just a draw card isn't the worst. But we're just trying to get some pressure going before they're really able to start like piling up on these beanstalks. Which this is obviously where the deck really gets its power, is having multiple beanstalks on the battlefield. Hence why like Aspiring Spike chose to go the direction of these Cascade spells instead of just risking, oh, I'm not going to always naturally draw my beanstalks. Like, hey, we'll just have 8, 12, 16 functional copies of it, and we'll find them. Like here, they get to Solitude my Kroxa, which feels bad. I could terminate my own Kroxa, but they're already up 3 cards off that Solitude, and I don't have a way to get the Kroxa back, nor do I have the cards like in hand to potentially shift things in that direction. So I kind of rather just like let the Kroxa go, find something else to do, which we are putting reasonable pressure on our opponent. We pick up this Drown in the Lock, which means that we can counter anything off the top. We know one of their cards is a Plains, so as long as their last card, this Omnath, doesn't draw them something off these beanstalks, then we get to steal game 1. Through triple beanstalk, double Solitude, Time Warp. See, if you line up your plays okay, you do have a chance. Sideboarding against the beanstalk decks. Anything that can counter beanstalks definitely coming in. So like extra spell pierces, if you have extra Drown in the Lock or something in the sideboard, that's coming in. If you're on a Blood Moon plan, that's definitely coming in. Otherwise, trim a couple Shadows. They're pretty bad into like the Solitudes. In Grixis, we don't really have much as far as enchantment hate goes. So once a beanstalk's on the battlefield, you're probably not doing too much about it. But because of all the Solitudes, your life total really doesn't matter that much. Turok's coming in. What else? That's most everything. Just trim on like some spot removal. We got double beanstalk. We haven't been able to get any sort of a board presence going, so pretty good chance our opponent's going to take this one. Could have flashed in a Bowmaster there into turn. I kind of want to save it for a turn where they do something with these beanstalks. Maybe they go for like a Lorien Revealed or something. I mean, obviously I'll cast it in response to a Teferi because I might as well use it. They tick up Teferi. We have not been able to get Delirium online, which is a little rough. So I was playing out that Fable first in case maybe they had a counterspell that wasn't Force. Perhaps I could get Delirium. And then decided to go ahead and fire off the Unholy Heat on the Teferi just so they couldn't untap and like bounce something. Bounce the Shaman, get a draw in. Like what I don't want is for them to get extra draws here. You get Teferi gone. We have an Orc that can attack in. Shadow and Delta. Not really the most impactful cards. Like, I really want to get things that are going to help me close out the game. Shadow's okay, but one, like, Solitude out of them on the Orc army, and that game plan just completely falls apart. So, tacking in to be able to get the last card out of hand with Kroxa, grow the Turok, And now it's just like fingers crossed. Like, hey, don't draw something that lets you draw more cards off Beanstalk. Well, getting another Beanstalk isn't the worst. That's pretty bad. Now they get my army token plus draw 3. And then find an endurance to get rid of my Kroxa. So kind of worst case scenario there, right? But that's kind of what this deck does, is it snowballs really, really heavily. And they do have a Beanstalk in the yard that they ditched to Turok, so out of Beanstalks. I say optimistically as they're down like 7 cards. Get that out of the way. Hold up, drown. Because they have the Ardent Plea, if they attack with both, I can chump block the Omnath and not be dead. Cycle the Xander's Lounge into our Turok. They can't attack or they're dead on the Crackback unless they have something to stop the Turok. EE. Okay. Maybe this was greedy. I could have EE'd on 2 to try to take out all the Beanstalks. My opponent's down to 2 cards. I decided to go for the win. And their last 2 cards are a Solitude and a white card. So they're able to Solitude their own endurance, gain up to 8. I lose my Reflection. They lose both of the Ardent Pleas. So I don't think it was that greedy. Like, they had 2 cards. Reasonable chance it's not Solitude plus white card, right? Shardless Agent is a chump blocker. Like, thankfully, Turok being immune, I should say, to a lot of the stuff they could have. The Solitudes, Leyline Bindings is nice. Unfortunately, it's not immune to them finding an endurance. So they could attack in, put me on a 2-turn clock if they have something else. But it looks like they don't have a follow-up play to the endurance. We top deck the Bowmaster, which is great for this last little ping point, but I'm going to wait for them to put something on the stack first to try to use up as much of their mana as I can. So if they hadn't cast the Solitude, I would hold on to that Bowmasters and wait for them to make a play. Because they got to do something. Like, they're under the gun to the Turok. Either way, we do pick up a win game or match 1 over Beans. So always nice to see. Match number 2. Good hand. Thoughtseize, Shadow, Bowmaster. We Thoughtseize and see we're up against some sort of a Vidalcan Shackles control deck. So we see Shackles, Bowmaster, Force. Shadow will be, if we can find a 3rd land, Shadow will be able to outgrow this Vidalcan Shackles pretty easily. Especially if they want to Bowmaster me, but Shadow's a pretty juicy target for a Shackles, so there's a reasonable chance they're going to want to resolve that and steal my Shadow, but you know what? I don't want them taking my Shadow. It's my Shadow. I worked hard for that Shadow. Shieldred. So just like blue-black control, expecting a 1 ring, expecting Shieldred. Alright, so we do find a fetch land to grow our Shadow. Dash Ragavan, attack with both, because whatever they block is going to give me Delirium to be able to take out the Shieldred. Now I know their hand is Bowmaster, Force of Negation. They have to flash in the Bowmaster here and chomp. So I went for the Bowmaster, their Bowmaster, and then play out the Shadow. I wonder if I should have just gone like, let them chomp, Fable, 2nd Shadow. I don't think it really matters. I think I'm kind of splitting hairs there, but maybe the more power on the board was better. Kind of depends on if I think Damnation is something I should be concerned about or not. But if they do have Damnation, then I do have Fable as a follow-up, so not a bad spot. Bringing in Narset here because if they've got Shieldred, I'm expecting them to have the One Ring. Maybe they don't. Maybe Vidalcan Shackles is enough artifact for your blue-black control deck, but I'm led to believe that a lot of the blue-black control decks right now are running the One Ring, so I'm going to assume until proven otherwise that they are. Love to see a land. Nice. I could go to jam this Narset, but I'm expecting some sort of resistance, counterspell, whatever. Shieldred's a little unfortunate on my side. I don't have an answer for that at the moment, but I do have triple expressive iteration, so decent chance I'll find something to deal with it. So still no Shieldred answer, but we can get the Shadow down, because if they kill the Shadow, then we've got Unholy Heat live to kill the Shieldred. So a little bit of a gameplay, a little back and forth, little option A, option B. Should have just Unholy Heated before that attack, but it's like, I like saving life, but at the same time, in a matchup where I don't really feel like my life total matters, I'm kind of okay getting a little lower, get bigger Shadow. But at the same time, they do have Bowmaster. They have more copies of Shieldred. And like, this is stopping me from fetching and shocking here, so it's a non-zero decision. But I was really trying to hold up interaction for the One Ring, and then got, I don't want to say punished, but kind of punished for like tapping out on my turn, and then them resolving the One Ring. So yeah, you get the idea. Not looking particularly good. Yeah, once a One Ring gets going, it's close to impossible to come back. I think we've made comparisons in previous constructed formats about things like what's it called? Thief of Sanity and like Ragavan, stuff like that, being 1 mana or 3 mana infect 5. Like, if it hits you a couple times, the game's probably over. The advantage that's been gained off of it's just too much to overcome. And the Ring's kind of like that. It's like, tap, give a player 5 poison counters. So, or I probably say like 3 1/3 poison counters. Because if they activate Ring 3 times, you're probably losing. Unless you have a very specific set of things going on. So we got Shadow down. We've got Spell Pierce up. I forgot to talk about sideboarding for the matchup. Pretty much all these control matchups are very similar. Boarding out some amount of spot removal, like Lightning Bolts. I kept in Heat because of Shieldred. Boarding in any card advantage you've got. So extra Narsets, extra Kroxas, Turok. If you're running like K-Command, something like that. Solid choice to bring in. Here, we're just looking for lands to be able to turn this Kroxa into a 2-for-1. It's It's also the reason that I like Kroxa more than Underworld Breach is a lot of these control matchups, these counterspell heavy matchups. Kroxa does a phenomenal job of putting pressure on your opponent's like hand and reactive capabilities. Then just happens to get even better if they've got things like 1-for-1 spot removal and less counter spells. Because then Kroxa can very easily turn into like a 3-for-1 if you're able to play the front half of it, resolve that, get a card out of hand, escape it, get a card, and then they have to spend a removal spell on it. Like that Kroxa has really, really traded up. So they got Shieldred's Edict and an Unknown. Unknown's another Shieldred. So Shieldred's Edict, Shieldred's Vidalcan Shackles. I probably should have just Kroxa'd that last turn to get the Shieldred's Edict out of hand. I don't think it's like a big deal, but probably would have been optimal. Now we have to have this fun little song and dance with Kroxa and Vidalcan Shackles. I really need them to like whiff on a couple draws so that I can escape Kroxa, 3-ball them, escape Kroxa again, 3-ball them. Let me pause this. So they had 5 lands available. If I Spell Pierce, they pay 2. If I Flusterstorm, they pay the other 3. So I cannot counter. I wouldn't be able to get a black source anyway, because I only have 1 Watery Grave. All right. I was thinking if it was worth it to like double counter the Preordain to escape the Kroxa and try to get them down to 3 life. So if they just top deck dead, I could just escape the other Kroxa. But because I only have 1 Watery Grave, I wouldn't be able to fetch out a second blue for the second counter and a second black to escape Kroxa. So they ditch a Stern Scolding. Unfortunate. Really needed Kroxa to like deal some damage here. And then this was a mistake on my end. So I went for the second Kroxa before combat. I should have gone to combat, made them steal the first Kroxa, and then escaped mine. But instead, I, for whatever reason, escaped Kroxa pre-combat, sacked the second one, and they got to steal the original. I could have solved that kind of by keeping the one that I just escaped, and so it would at least have Summoning Sickness. But here we're just going to be throwing cards away, chumping the Kroxa, because that does give us enough cards in the yard to escape again. Which means if we could find like a Bolt, which I don't even know if we have any in post board. So they give us back Kroxa, make us decide between our 2 Kroxas. Steal this one, attack in with Shadow. They're forced to chump block. So now if they find a land, they can steal our Shadow. Which it does not look like they did. They passed our turn. We find Drown in the Loch. So that should be able to answer anything, but looks like they just drew dead. Really weird back and forth interactions with Vidalcan Shackles. I'll have to remember a lot of those for like the next time I play any sort of Vidalcan Shackles deck, thinking about my timing of stuff like Kroxa. So we are on to round 3, 4, something. Rogren, Ketria, Triumph, Lightning Bolt. So assuming creativity. Ketria, Triumph usually makes you think Rhinos, but since Rhinos can't play Lightning Bolt, I'm going to assume creativity. Turn 2 Fable, absolutely one of my favorite plays in this variation of Shadow. Then yeah, running 6 to take out my my Ragavan. Definitely leads you to believe creativity. But we get to take out Ren, Thoughtseize, take out their Fable, play a second Fable. So they've got a Fire and Ice, a Spell Pierce, a Hard Evidence. We don't really care about a Crab token. All we care about is being able to attack every turn now and get up the interaction. So like Orcish Bowmaster is able to ping down a token off a Dwarven Mine if we need to go that route. Drown in the Lock can counter a Fable. I kind of want to just build up my mana to make this Spell Pierce useless. Like, they can't go for a creativity right here. I've got that covered. I don't really care about Fire taking down my Fable because, hey, I've got another one coming up next turn. Let's just try to keep the board a little clear, not use our treasure tokens, because again, trying to build up mana to play through like Spell Pierce and stuff like that. I do still want an iteration. I want to like cast my spells. Like, my only thing I care about right now is playing around double Spell Pierce. Everything else is kind of out the window, because I feel like as long as I don't get got by a creativity with protection, I'm winning that game. Sideboarding against creativity. Ragavan's pretty rough. Bowmasters are okay at pinging down a token, but way less good when your opponent's playing a 0/3 crab. So I'm trimming on Bowmasters mainly because of Hard Evidence. Against like the typical creativity builds, I'm a lot more likely to leave a copy or two in. Go for Bolt on the Crab, try to get some mana going. Cool. Persist off the top. Fortunately, I've got nothing to persist, so that's kind of useless. We're just going to draw a card. See a land coming off the top on their side. I have been seeing a rise in creativity decks recently. I don't know if y'all have, but I've seen a lot more in the last, like, 3 weeks or so. Maybe it's got a good matchup into some of the top stuff. I don't know. I don't think I've ever played a creativity league. But now that I've kind of got my mana going, I feel a lot more confident this game, able to get more aggressive with like flashing in Bowmasters and holding up interaction. It's funny how much a little bit of mana helps. Casting spells, who knew? So, hack in, see what our opponent decides to do. Take out the token because we get like a mana rebate off this this Ragavan here. And then again, playing around Spell Pierce by playing or by holding up my mana plus my treasures gives me 4, so I can Drown in the Lock and pay 2 for a Spell Pierce instead of playing out the Shadow. But then Thoughtseize is a pretty good one for kind of clearing the way. The Archon, 4 lands. Attack in. See what they decide to do. They're going to take it, go down to 2. We got Shadow. And now we've got Drown in the Lock for like anything off the top. Fetchling can only get 1 blocker. So we know we're going to have counter if they do find a creativity, which they do. and attack in through the token on our turn. It's the CntrlFreak special style of Magic when you know your opponent's going to hit, so you have to keep up that mana just like constantly. This is round 4, round 5, might be round 5. Looks like Murktide except for Narset, Lorien revealed, Archmage's Charm. So maybe just a blue-red control deck. Maybe not like Ragavan, Darcy, Ledger Shredder. But either way, having iterations and drowns and thought seizes kind of helps out a reasonable bit. That being said, Snapcaster should be a pretty big indicator of like Flame of Anor. At least I think it is. We'll just kind of hold drown until we're able to drown plus iteration. So opponent flashes in Snapcaster. I was kind of okay with that with Snap Consider. But then they targeted Archmage's Charm and didn't have the mana to cast anything. So we got to say, cool, you've got a 2/1. Take out Narset, draw into our iteration, which does find Kroxa. Love to see that. So now Counterspell's gone, Dress Down's gone. They've got one unknown with an Unholy Heat coming off the top. They do have an answer to the Kroxa, unfortunately. But that being said, we'll be completely fine getting them empty-handed. If they're going to bolt us. Little rude. Bobble them, see a land, take out the Snapcaster. So we know they're drawing dead. We're drawing Kroxa. Or not drawing, but escaping Kroxa again. And they've got one turn to hit a live thing, or else Kroxa kills them. And they find a Snapcaster for Snap Bolt. Rough. Like I said, the CntrlFreak School of Magic. You know your opponent's going to hit. How are you going to play around it? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Either way, on to game 2. I boarded out a couple Ragavans because I saw like Bolt, Heat, Snapcaster. So reasonable chance Ragavan's going to not do a whole lot. Boarded in Flusterstorm, the extra Pierce, Turok, the Narsets. All the normal control stuff. Opponent goes to fluster my Thoughtseize. So, of course, we're going to take the chance to fluster a fluster because it's been a while since I've gotten to fluster a fluster. I'm feeling a little flustered. Classic CntrlFreak humor there. But we get to resolve with Thoughtseize. Okay. First off, before we continue on with this game, Flusterstorm is the most annoying card I think I've ever tried to resolve and do targets for on Magic Online, and I hate it. I hate it with a passion. So you've got like an original Flusterstorm copy, and then their Storm copy, and then mine, and then a Storm trigger, and then 2 copies. And thankfully, these 2 Flusterstorms have like different artworks, so it's a little easier to keep track of. But it's a pain when picking out targets because apparently Magic Online like won't let you go back after you picked a target, so or won't let you go back to the first copy. Like it would let me go back to the new copy and undo it. So I had like original copy. When I resolved the first copy and picked a target, it was fine. The second copy, I picked a target, then I wanted to change it. Didn't really matter, but I wanted to change it. Why not? And it like would let me go back to the first copy, but it wouldn't let me go back to the original and reselect the target for the first copy. So just moral of the story, be careful when clicking through your Flusterstorm. But either way, we get it resolved. Take a look at their hand. They do have some spot removal. Stone of Eric, we don't really care about. Hey, we got a Narset. Narset into Fable. That's got to be pretty decent, right? When it passes turn, we get to hearse away some stuff, play a Shadow. And they scoop it up. Love to see. So going into match 3 or match 5, game 3. Or no, match 4, game 3. Match 4, game 3. It's tough keeping up with this. So this is the first time we've seen Ragavan, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like getting into the depth of game 3 and hadn't seen it yet. Little punish for fetching out the steam vents when we draw a second steam vents. Obviously would like some black mana. Do find it. Could go for the Narset here, but into potential open counterspell, I'd rather just wait. Like try to force the issue with Orcish Bowmaster and then untap and maybe go for Narset. Ugh. Spell Snare's rough. I would have much preferred a more expensive counterspell. So they Flame of Anor to draw 2. Means I would love to resolve something relevant. Another Flusterstorm. Worst possible time for that, because I can't even spell pierce it. Another Flame of Anor to draw 2. So we kind of realized during this game that they're draw 2 tribal. They might not say it, but they're draw 2 tribal. Thoughtseize, see Snapcaster, Lorien revealed. We know Lorien revealed is not getting cast in the face of Narset, but Hall of the Storm Giants does get to take out our Planeswalker. They are going to resolve a Lorien revealed, but I'll at least make them pay a couple more so maybe they can't follow it up with like a Murktide. That being said, they can follow it up with a Bolt on our token. And it looks like they found some gas with these double Archmage's charms. So they've got Charm, Unknown. They're unknown as a Flame of Anor, which means now they can counter my Bowmaster and fight over my counter for their counter, which is rough. I probably should have just made them do that, but I kind of figured once they put Flame of Anor on the stack that I wasn't fighting over the Archmage's charm, so I just kind of laid off of it. But they're just going to run us out with all of these draw 2 effects. I say run us out. Like, we've still got some game. Some small amounts of game. Snap Charm. So they have drawn 2, I think, 4 times this game. Flame, Charm, Snap, Charm. Pretty hard to come back from that. And you know you're in trouble when your opponent's like firing off counter spells on the front half of Kroxa instead of just ditching it. So Firing up a hull, decide to trade off the Snapcaster for the reflection, because if I like chump the hull, then I'm still having to deal with the hull next turn. But if I take out the Snapcaster, then maybe like I find a Bowmaster to chump for a couple turns. And Holy Heat, not quite enough to take out hull. But I do have Terminate and pay for the ward. So maybe if our opponent actually has nothing. Which, what are the odds? Probably pretty low. Probably 0. Yeah. That was kind of funny. That's actually twice that I've lost to Hull of the Storm Giants in the last week. So apparently that's the meta breaker. Can't scam away a Hull of the Storm Giants. So on to round 5. Opponents on Living In. Breeding Pool, Street Wraith kind of gives that away. Living End is not a particularly good matchup for Grixis. Obviously, with like Dimir, it's a lot better. Still not perfect because you don't have as quick of a clock. But Grixis especially, clock's not very fast. Your counter magic's pretty clunky. So it can be very troublesome at times. We'll try to find Thought Seizes or something. Take another land because I need another one to get Shadow online regardless. But with Living End, without a lot of like Flusterstorms, it can be really troublesome when you get into these counter wars or these like turn 3, turn 4 area. Because let's say your opponent goes for a Grief on turn 3. And they see, oh, you've got Drown and Lock, Drown and Lock. Now they kind of have free reign to like go to your turn, Violent Outburst. Oh, you countered it because you had to untap Charlotte's Agent, kill you. Nothing you can do about it. With Dimir, you have a lot more chances to like, oh, I've got Counterspell, Stub, Pierce, and 3 lands. So like you can take one of these. I still have 2 available that I can hold up. But get down Shadow, just kind of hope they don't have stuff here. Waker is fine. Waker is not a Cascade spell. Then if they do go for a Living End on their turn, then we have we've got Drowned available. Unfortunately, if they go to our turn, because we haven't gotten our 4th land drop yet, we can't beat like Violent Outburst, Force of Negation. But they let us get to our main phase, so that's a plus. Pass with our double drown up. We go for Otawara, which is okay with me because I can flash in Bowmaster and have up a counter spell. I can keep the pressure going a bit. And then when we get to our turn, we've got to make the decision between like holding up double counter spell or Thought Seize plus Shadow. Hold up a counter spell. The Spell Pierce changes things a reasonable bit because now I can like go for Shadow, hold up Spell Pierce if they have an end of turn outburst, and then have Drown and Lock available on their turn. So So I think this was kind of greedy going for the Thoughtseize. I think I should have just played the Shadow and passed. And I could have Thoughtseized on my next turn. And had lethal. But either way, they don't find another Cascader. Get to counter Fury, untap, and kill. So things worked out somehow. But I do think that Thoughtseize plus Shadow line was pretty greedy. Sideboarding, anything that says counter coming in. A lot of the spot removal coming out. Ragavan, really, really important on turn 1. Obviously, you're not always going to have it, but it does a phenomenal job of letting you get to double spell mana, which you absolutely need. Like, I wish I could say you could win the matchup fairly well by just going land, dude, something like that. But they've got so many ways of backing up their one card combo. So Magic Online replay being a little slow. It always slows down in like the 5th match of every league. It's kind of crazy. Like they see you trying to replay matches and they're like, hey, hold up. Wait a minute. But either way, get in attacking with Ragavan, get our bobble, pass the turn. If our opponent goes for like a cycler on their turn, then we'll go for Bowmaster. But if they just pass with their mana up, then we can't. We gotta wait till our turn. Do want to fight over a living end. They've got double Waker of Waves, unknown. Double Waker, unknown. We've got Ragavan. We decide to attack in. We've got the backup Ragavan, so might as well. We're not doing anything else. Double Waker gone. Pretty bad spot for us at this point. Yep. So not hitting land drops absolutely killed that hand. Which you get used to after a while of like playing Shadow, saying, oh, I've got a 1-lander, I got to keep it, and it doesn't pay out. And you should remember that, but you don't. And this was just like perfect storm. They've got Force of Negation for the turn 1 Thoughtseize. Turn 2, I decide to hold up the Bowmaster to get the clock going instead of going for the Spell Bomb, which they cycle right away. And I'm like, okay, great. I get pressure with the Bowmaster. I get some triggers. Like, I get an actual clock. And then they immediately have the Grief follow up, take my Spell Bomb. So, heavy punish for that. But I'm still thinking like, okay, got a clock. They're dead. Not necessarily next turn. But then they've got the Violent Outburst. So, yeah. I could have played it safe with the Spell Bomb. But I would have had no clock because they would have griefed my Bowmaster instead. And then I'm just sitting there like doing nothing. Draw land. There for lands. So if you're in the camp, oh man, voice crack there. If you're in the camp of ban grief, then this is probably like another feather in your cap, right? Because grief right there single-handedly won them that game. We would have had the Nihil Spellbomb if not for it. But regardless, what did we play against? We beat Beanstalk. Really fun. Beat Blue-Black Control. Lost to Blue-Red Control. But those were pretty close games. Lost to Living End. Always feels bad, but I gotta Except that living in is going to be kind of rough, especially when I'm going with Fables and Kroxas. And I do want to stress that point that any of the lists that I'm really focused on or I'm advocating playing are mainly geared towards scam. Like, I'm not gearing them towards living in. I'm not gearing them towards Beanstalk. So if you're seeing a lot of those decks at your like local metas, then make the necessary adjustments. You don't need to play whatever list I'm playing card for card, because I'm only focused on online meta presence and playing into scam. But as always, hope some of this helped. I will be trying out Narset a little bit more going forward, but I don't think it's a necessary piece right now. I think that, again, scam is so much more prevalent than Beanstalk that I'd rather focus any spare slots towards that matchup and trying to make it a little better percentage-wise. The rest of the deck, I mean, I'm kind of sold on like 58 of the 60 in the main deck. Spell Pierces, the drown numbers are a little here and there. Everything else I've really liked. Maybe go up a bolt, go up a heat, something. In the sideboard, if you're expecting a lot of rhinos and living in, I'd rather have the second Flusterstorm over the second Spell Pierce. But if you're expecting more Beanstalk, then the Pierce makes more sense. So yeah, I'll still be toying around with numbers in the next few weeks while we still got the modern RCQ season going on. And if you're watching the video, enjoying it, and you want to like chat up your ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments, or I'll have a link to the CntrlFreak Discord if you want to come talk about it there. Otherwise, yeah, I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your days. Stay safe. Enjoy some good food and company. Catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.